Thank you for tuning up to Knives. This will be a review of the SNG, some things I've noticed over long-term use and abuse. You can see here there's two SNGs. One is the concealed carry style, which has a more of a contoured profile, much more comfortable in the pocket, much more easy to grip, in a sense more like of a feeling of you have a good grip on it. And then here's the brick style, where it's like the slang term, the Lego bricks version, where there's no contouring, it's squared off, but it provides more bulk, but it doesn't feel perhaps as comfortable in the hand, especially not at this point right here. Now, you see these two right here, this is a custom, and the blade right here came out of this handle, and this side is carbon fiber, and then this blade is a normal S30V that came out of this handle with the G10. But both are constructed the same way, so let's go over that real fast. You can see there's 3 screws male, 3 females, okay, and the males are open, kind of like the new Sabenzas, which then allows you to clean them out thoroughly. You can see 2 types of lock bar stabilizer discs, one that's domed, one that's flat. If it's a good one, you will see the screw there of the lock bar stabilizer all the way through the TI, the threading, and same thing with the pot clip. So never ever seen a problem with the stripping of that threading. And the pot clip, you can see, is minimalized down to 1 screw and a little inlet where the pot clip goes in. On the stonewash versions, they're very much more tactical and slide right out of the pocket because of the smooth surface, the stonewash. On the ones that are perhaps more flamed, or like this one with all this pattern, they stick in your pocket, and you might have to even pull on the clip. I mean, if you push it all the way down in your pocket, it's much more secure. Lockups always, stop pins hit the TI side, most of the time not the other side. There is a gap where this pin doesn't hit the G10, and that's normal. You know, a couple things when you close a strider, make sure you don't push on this when disengaging the lock. There is that kind of shape. There you can see the contact portion that a strider makes. Very small little area. This area is very durable. It doesn't seem to wear very much at all. The blades are always 4mm. The custom sometimes can be slightly thicker, just depending. And then also, sometimes they can also be a bit longer too. And then you look at the lanyard holes. On the customs, the lanyard hole, you can see, would cut, but my tip is broken off many times. But normally, yes, SNGs tend to kind of cut into the lanyard hole. But it just depends. If you start using this tip a lot, that won't be a problem. On the custom ones, the chisel grinds, there's that smarter logic where now you can put a lanyard and just tie it and have this at the side where they come out of your pocket, so no problem, and it won't cut the lanyard. So that's like a more smart design. You can see this one here is a mix match, but this is solid, while this one has lock rock. And you can see how the lockup is on both. Now, though the lock bar on this is contoured, and therefore it kind of gives it the impression that it's a less area of this lock bar touching the blade ting, is actually the same. It's just this one doesn't have that outer edge right here on this side curved down. So that's why it gives that impression. But the actual contact area is the same, so that's not affected anyway. If you get a strider, I suggest getting an early lockup, so it does allow some time to wear. But like I said, to prevent that not wearing, go ahead and put graphite to preserve it, and then that's not such a problem. Or the ultimate fix, carbonize that lock bar face. Have a custom knife maker or someone carbonize that lock bar. The female and male pivot can be taken apart quite easy. I'll show that, but they will require Loctite or Teflon tape, because as you use it, perhaps even use it hard, or if you give it the wrist flick, you give it the wrist flick, which is hard to do on this knife because the D10 is strong, it will loosen. And let's see, so this is definitely more of a function knife. It's not much of a tactical folder. And I say that because it has very little grip here, and it can move around very easily. Even if held in a knife fine position, at that point it's much more secure because that's in that knuckle, but nevertheless a little risky. It does emphasize function. Like I really wish they would make a Tonto concealed carry version, because the balance feels great. There's like this bulk here and this bulk here, and it feels really good in the hand. It does have hot spots all over, whether it be here or up here or here, with stabbing motions. It does have hot spots, I would say, on the Lego versions here. Like I said, this one's more comfortable, but the thing is, with gloves, SNGs don't do so well. If you're gonna get, if you're thinking you're gonna use this and wear gloves, you might want to consider an SMF, because gloves, there's just enough bulk. It's hard to unlock with a glove like this way, almost impossible. Even if your hands are just wet and no glove, this is very difficult. But you can do this, and that's a nice little feature, but you do kind of have to keep your finger high. But SNGs do provide that safety and that kind of intuitiveness that some people take for granted. But instead of having to go like that, if you didn't open it right, you can do that, and that actually does mean something. Along with this, when you pull it out of your pocket, SNGs provide a bulk that allow you to grab it with the pocket clip right there to get perfectly out of your hand, perfectly ready to go. And let's say hypothetically it did wave, or you shook it open, okay? And it waves from where you are. Because of the structure of it and design, it's a no-brainer that when you grip it, your hand's in place, and in a place that if it disengages, you won't cut yourself. There's no leeway. There's no, there's no risk of you being accidentally too high up or too far back. It's just you grab this triangle that's formed down here, and your hand's in the right spot. Then of course, that you can modify it by adding little generic, zip tie wave, so you can wave the knife. You can also use that for a possible lanyard point. I want to also talk about their steel. Their S30, to me their S30 is actually very pleasant, right there in the middle between not too hard to where it'll chip at the same time, because I've never actually had that much of an issue. At the same time, now as for this discussion on some of their crazier steels, I want to talk about some of the hard tool steels, okay? So this here, you can see, is my Vim Crew, and Vim Crew, if you guys have been following, there's only 50 of these blades available, and then that was it. Originally I thought that Strider stopped making them and switched to M4 because of the microchipping, because of the high Rockwell, and it ends up being that, I thought maybe there just wasn't demand for it or something, I don't know, but it ends up not being that. It ends up being that the steel is just too fancy, I guess, for Crucible's new owners. But the point being is that Vim Crew is hard. I don't know. You just go on my website. I don't know. Really high Rockwell, 67s plus or something like that. Right? It's the metal that can wear out a testing machine, that tests wearing. And it comes chiseled. And I knew right off the bat that's because too much effort to grind both sides down. And at the same time, this is one of the original older ones, large bevel right here. On the newer ones, later ones that he made, they still had this bevel, but then the actual cutting relief edge was very, very narrow. Because, like I said, I've noticed as I take it to a fine, shallow grind for slicing, it does have chipping issues. And so that's my experience with tool steels, is that one, yeah, they chip easier than roll, depending on what kind. Like if it's M4 or 3V and emphasizing toughness, then that's great. But on something like where it's emphasizing edge retention, like ZDP or this, it's just a constant battle. And this steel taught me a lot. Like basically, you can't sharpen this on ceramics, or it'll shave off that ceramic rod and curve it. You'll basically cut into the ceramic. It's retarded. It's almost like it's hard to touch it up. This I've learned, when you start getting towards harder tool steels, you want diamond. And I've had to reprofile it here. You can see, and I've stonewashed it afterwards, and then end up just reprofiling it again because there's a bulk that he couldn't grind around that curve. I notice and I understand that difficulty of grinding this. I like these little spots right here because that little jimping, when cut hard, allows you to strike it on your fire steel. And so I have gone and started to go over it again to try to give it a sharp corners. Right there, some sharp corners. This little cut right here is actually where, if you can see down here, the inside of the SNG has a little bump right here in the G10 where that screw goes through, and that's where what makes it stop when you close. But This also is beneficial when sharpening, because when you have well, you could strike your fire steel there, but when you have blades like on spiracles, I guess go straight to this, I guess you call it the ricotta or the hilt or something, I don't know what it is. You know, it's hard to get this area. With these, you could sharpen all the way to the edge. And you see, reprofiling them can be quite easy. The tops of striders usually don't have any fancy swedges, so they always, usually whether they're the spear points or other ones, always have just a flat surface for you just to scrape down. I've had to reprofile, like you see here, the top is, you scrape down the top to reestablish that tip. See, whether sharpener on that corner. Like I said, this thing has been through hell and back. You can see also I learned that when you have chisel grinds, that you know, that burr starts to form, and you know, everything kind of starts to go that way, and so you kind of want to lightly on whatever you're using. For example, this fine diamond to go like this and just go across like that, just very light, just the blade's weight, you know. And then I've noticed too with this kind of steel that after getting the bevel set, when you sharpen it, you sharpen it, but then eventually you might want to consider raising it up a little bit and creating a micro bevel. And that's the main thing, is when these chip, man, tool steel blades are just, wow, hard. Hard to deal with. It's a whole new ballpark. I think most people, you know, if you only knew kind of what it's like to sharpen tool steels, it's crazy. But let's see if I can show that at least it's decent. There's microchips in it. I never thought I'd hold this in the camera and keep it in frame. Let's see. So there's that microchip going. But this is a chisel grind, so you see chisel grinds do good. You can see those chips where it catches. See, it's right there towards that curve area. But regardless, see, past that area where it's chipped, no problems. Sharp, doable. So Strider does offer a lot of interesting types of steels and stuff. We have the Strider little simple tool that goes on a keychain, easy to take with you. Realistically speaking, though, if you have Teflon tape or Loctite, you're going to need a little hex to put in this side to unlock it. In terms of assembling or reassembling a Strider, how hard is it? I would say that it's quite easy. You see, you don't have to. You could, you know, these screws, if you wanted to, you could loosen them, okay, like this. And you could go ahead, loosen, you know, get them all loose, but you don't have to take them all the way apart. Even though the females are not shouldered, even though the females are not notched, meaning they can spin in place, they have this unique design to them that allows them, that kind of has them grip into the G10. As the screw goes in, they expand, and so they don't spin on you. So it's kind of a very simplified process. And as you can see here, taking apart an SNG and dealing with it is a breeze. It's one of the biggest, easiest things to do, and the hardware is some of the best quality stuff you honestly you can get. Let's see. In terms of taking apart, I'm gonna have to get this in here. Okay. There we go. Here's the pivot. Now, most of the time when there is some kind of blade play or imbalances, I will say it is something to do with the pivot and the machining of the hole in the blade. Sometimes that's just not perfect, and there can be some wiggle, but that can be remedied by just tightening it. And you can see how far my lock bar is. You know, once eventually that lock bar starts wears, there's a lot of rattle perhaps, so you might have to go in here, and the fix is to push it all the way in. How far I have had to push it in. So you see that reflective spot? That is where the lock bar actually meets the blade tank. Just that's it. So you see how far I push it in. Now the trade-off is, as your knife wears out, though, you see the lock bar stabilizer no longer works as effectively because it's not covering it. But of course, this is exaggerated. With the blade in, it wouldn't be that far. So it does still. That's why I like the ones that have the completely squared off look right there. Sometimes I've seen on Striders that this disc is flipped up, so that when you actually look at it from this way, this disc would be upside down. So you got to make sure. But you can see, even on concealed carry, the lock bar stabilizer works as it should. You know, and over an extension lock bar protection, and also an inward grip protection. I mean, no matter how strong a knife is built with that, if you grip it hard, the lock bar is going to move slightly inward, but then it stops. See, if I had to reassemble it, there's two washers, different sizes, but let's say hypothetically I had to try to put this knife back together, okay? I could just do this, put the small washer in, loop it over, okay, put the blade in, and last thing would be this washer, which you can see like that, right? It's in there, and then go and try to tuck it in. Okay, this one's got pretty good tolerances. Okay. Now, as for the actual rest of the knife on the inside, the design that makes the strider quite strong and simplified is this integrated backspacer. Because of that flat surface now that comes to kind of the TI, you have a consistent, lined up, angle of both handles. At the same time, too, you've eliminated the need for spacers, which would be an extra part. Even though it has the ability to wave, and you have other options in terms of versatility to use your thumb or different fingers to deploy the knife. Because you can't use your middle, your pointing. And it all seems to come together pretty good. Even being ambidextrous, closing it like this, going like this, going like this. It is very intuitive. It's a very, comfortable design that you just start to get used to and becomes a breeze to handle. No reverse grip of this knife. I don't suggest it. Okay, it's just not made for that. There's not a large guard here. Okay, this area gets thinner. It's for function, and you can see here. So, simple construction. Person want to see what it looks like on the inside. Macro. You see how these see how they look. See that kind of texture around them that prevents them from sliding out necessarily. But some can just slide in and out quite easily. But luckily these. See, so again, look how easy that is. They're all coated. I mean, the titanium of course can't rust, so low maintenance there. And the G10, you can see over time, one might be concerned that the G10 would wear, but actually the G10 holds the washers quite well, and actually the only thing that wears is the side of the washer that's touching the blade tang. And as for the thickness of the washers, you have a pretty, they're definitely very stout. See, thick enough to be visible around the blade. You can see it. See? It's just dirty. Final thoughts on it. It's a wonderful knife. I mean, it's a breeze to use. It's easy to carry. I mean, it's easy. It's functional in your hands. The lock bar you choose. Well, you bend it. I mean, just bear in mind that's what you're looking at. The options for different steels. Like for even tool steels. I don't even care if it rusts. You can see my blade. It's it's stains and stuff. This Vim Crew can stain. Whatever I'm dealing with here. The thing is, I want to mention about tool steels. It's different than a stainless, because a tool steel knife can do anything a stainless knife can do, but a stainless steel knife can't do everything a tool steel knife can do. And this knife, you remember, you've seen me cut through handcuffs with this blade right here, and I've had this now for over 8 months, I think now, using it all the time. Doing all these crazy tests, and you can see how it's just held up. But some people are afraid of rust. Rust is iron, which is the rest of the knife. I mean, when it's not vanadium or whatever, molybdenum. All the other alloys in the metal, the rest is iron always. And iron in its natural form is iron oxide, which is rust. But rust is okay, safe to ingest. So I mean, if I had a rusty knife and I started cutting with it, it's not going to hurt me to ingest it. I mean, it's not that big of a deal actually. And the trade-off is I get high performance. So look at that wearing, but yeah, look at the inside. It's nothing. It just holds up. The hardware is outstanding. That I can say is something you never have to worry about. There's lots of other people, videos, questions about their service and their warranty program. So you guys go ahead and those answers out there, or just message me. Normally, the female pivot goes in through the G10 side. I put it in through the titanium side because I've noticed this makes it much easier to reassemble the knife, because it's like that. But now you can see the female is shouldered by the G10. If this was pressed all the way through, let's see, you can see that's the amount that sticks into the G10. Now my thoughts on this are that perhaps the reason why they normally are situated on the G10 side, the female starts going through, is so that it's guaranteed that the shouldering goes straight through the G10 and there's no risk of movement here to wear out the G10. That's my thought on that, and the reasoning why I think it's that way. But I've yet to ever have any issues, and this is more simplified. And if you had to, in the end, like I said, put the handle screws together, then after insert the pivot through the G10 side. And one last important note: carbon fiber, kind of fragile, so it doesn't stand impact very well. But it is harder, and on the customs, the carbon fiber side of a concealed carry is a little bit thicker right throughout here. If you were to look from the top compared to a concealed carry. Both between the concealed carry and gunner grip versions, though, this scale is very thin, and I've noticed that it can have flex, because different quality G10, like my Tazula Strider, the G10 is solid, but on the SNGs I can feel flex, and I can push it down on a concealed carry. So that is something to consider, but durable nevertheless, and no real worries about any kind of things in terms of structural integrity. Just there's flex though. But I do want to notice that one of the things perhaps I always thought was that the perhaps between the Lego version and the concealed carry version, the integrity of this area in terms of the overall, how I say, strength of the handle, being that this concealed carry perhaps you lose some structural strength. You can see here with the stop pin, less material is making contact with the stop pin. You can see that, but nevertheless it is flush. I don't think there's that much worry of wear there. You can see here, one might think, okay, you see then how these are again this contour, but you can see that as they fit through these holes, that's still enough to hold them in place, and they're going through a solid spacer. And even back here you can see it's actually the same amount practically. Honestly, and also the last part is then you actually see then the actual middle section running down the middle, and that's probably where the most important is. Between the thickness and height here to here, basically running down the middle of the handle, is the same. So the actual structural integrity that you can say of a concealed carry, basically right where the pivot is the same thickness as the Lego version. It's only on this corner, which is not relevant, along this area that's not relevant. These areas aren't really as much of a concern. The concealed carry versions are still just as strong, I feel. Just again, with gloves, depending what you're using it for, your choices. Beat up Strider. Let's see. Right, this stainless steel stop pin received lots of damage, and so I had to, sand it down, make it flat again, just to have it look at least a little bit better. Cut out outside. If it can feel that lock